Things have heated up regarding the Dax Harwood podcast and CM Punk seemingly pushing that he wants to come back and do business. Punk posted on Instagram a photo of him with FTR, as well as pushing his number 2 in merch sales and a list of the most watched YouTube videos from AEW in 2022, of which he was in many of them, including the top 2. The unique part of this story is that dissension would likely be a benefit to Punk, as would falling business numbers, because Punk's value would be the idea he could get numbers back up during what could be a contract year. In theory, he should be okay by April or May after his triceps surgery. That would also be around the time FTR's contract expires. Although he's not being featured on television right now, and when he is, he's there to lose to the top stars in great matches. There are significant plans for Takeshita to be pushed as a top-tier guy. Obviously, the Don Callis scouting storyline looks to be a catalyst in some form. The Jericho Cruise will take place February 2nd to February 6th. They are going from a Thursday to Tuesday, so nobody will be missing television. There will be regular matches taking place daily on the cruise, as well as concerts and comedy shows. Among the list of those going are Jericho, Daniel Garcia, Jake Hager, Angelo Parker, Matt Menard, Anna Jay, Tay Melo, Sammy Guevara, Dante, and Darius Martin, Swerve Strickland, Jade Cargill, The Acclaimed, Eddie Kingston, Isla Rose, Wardlow, Christopher Daniels, Luther, Serpentico, Penta, Phoenix, Ricky Starks, Jay Lethal, Vicky Guerrero, Jungle Boy, Willow Nightingale, Hikaru Shida, Gun Brothers, Ortiz, Satnam Singh, Luchasaurus, Frankie Kazarian, Layla Gray, Mark Sterling, Action Andretti, Danhausen, Dan Lambert, Mark Henry, Mickey James, Matt Cardona, Brian Myers, Nick Gage, Flip Gordon, Nick Aldis, Moose, Jim Duggan, Brutus Beefcake, Mike Rotunda, Dan Lambert, Swaggle, Rocky Romero, Yui Uemura, Ariane Andrew, ODB, Boogeyman, and Luigi Primo. Ryan Nemeth is listed for the role of Gino Hernandez in the Von Erich movie that is currently filming. Jericho donated $10,000 to the fund set up for Damar Hamlin after he suffered cardiac arrest in the middle of the Bills-Bengals Monday Night Football game on January 2nd. This got some mainstream media publicity on television news shows and other news outside of wrestling as part of the story, since donations topped $4 million in less than one day, and he was one of the major donors. Dustin Rhodes noted that he lost his mother, Sandra, who had been battling an illness for weeks. Sandra was the first wife of Dusty. Ring announcer Justin Roberts has been off television the past few weeks because his mother is very ill. UK ratings this past week were down. The December 20th Rampage did 76,000 viewers with an 11:50 p.m. start, which is below usual. The December 23rd Dynamite did 122,000 viewers, which is a low number for a regular 9 p.m. start. Karen Jarrett appeared to be very upset about the Max Caster rap where, when running down Kurt Angle, it mentioned that he stole Karen from Kurt Angle. At first I thought she was just playing up the angle, but if that was the case, she'd have gone after Caster, which she did to a degree, mainly, and not gone off so hard on Kurt. She said that even though they were still portrayed as a couple when they were in TNA, that she and Kurt had separated, blaming his affairs on Y, and that Jeff Jarrett didn't steal her from anyone. If you recall, in TNA, Jeff Jarrett actually lost power over this. The story going around at the time was that Dixie Carter asked Jeff about stories he was with Karen, and he said they were just friends, and when she found out differently, he lost a lot of his power. Jeff claimed that Dixie was just trying to get him out of power and used that as an excuse. She said they were legally separated and living in different homes when Kurt first went to TNA, although during that appeared they attempted a reconciliation which didn't work, and said she tried to get over his affairs but wasn't able to. At first I thought her comments were just a way for her to try and make real the idea Jeff was mad about the rap to build the match. But it's clear she was very upset about it. In writing on social media about it, she also targeted Kurt Angle, saying, "We can start here. My marriage to Kurt was over long before Jeff and I started seeing each other. We were legally separated at the time Kurt signed with TNA, living in different homes. We got back together and I tried to get over the affairs, among other things that went on in our marriage, but obviously wasn't able. Funny and sad how all of that has been swept under the rug over all these years. Jeff didn't steal me from anyone. Hashtag Dawn Marie, hashtag Kelly Kelly, hashtag Deanne Sin, to name a few. Maybe Kurt will think twice before making threats, insulting/disrespecting my husband. I am done living in fear. I have 24 years of dirt I am ready to start unloading. I am done. Hashtag moving on." Karen also said the alleged threats by Kurt were not online. Kelly Kelly went no Twitter and claimed she never had an affair with Kurt. Mark Quinn is out with an injury. While there was a ton of talk about Dax Harwood's podcast within the company, The one thing that didn't seem to get around or mentioned was him saying was that if there was a Mount Rushmore of tag teams, that the Young Bucks should be on it for all the things they've done in the ring and their influence on the business. Upcoming ticket sales numbers are: January 6th Rampage and Battle of the Belts in Portland, Oregon, at 4,779. January 11th Dynamite in Los Angeles at 7,213. I had figured 8,000 to be a good second time in the market number and they may hit it. January 18th in Fresno, California, at 4,336. January 25th in Lexington, Kentucky, at 4,115. February 1st in Dayton at 1,243. February 8th in El Paso, Texas at 2,644. February 15th in Laredo, Texas, at 1,459. Fresno, Lexington, Dayton, El Paso and Laredo are first time in the market shows and the latter three are nor doing well. February 22nd in Phoenix is at 5,185. March 1st in San Francisco is at 2,953. March 5th pay-per-view in San Francisco is at 5,953. March 8th in Sacramento is at 3,626. March 14th in Winnipeg is at 6,076. March 22nd in Independence, Missouri, is at 1,291 and April 5th at the UBS Arena in Long Island, is at 3,751. Rosario Grillo, who works the streaming shows, suffered a broken ankle and tore all the ligaments in her ankle and needs surgery. In a trivia note, Brian Alvarez and Nick Wayne were on Talk as Jericho. Jericho asked Wayne about any memories he had of his father wrestling. Nick was 11 when his father died, so he didn't have many, but he did mention a 2014 match his father had with Alvarez. Buddy Wayne trained Alvarez and they were close friends, and Nick noted that and also that the timekeeper for that match, which was the first job the timekeeper ever had in wrestling, was Darby Allin. BT this week did 101,000 views, down 6.5% from last week. Dark Elevation did 198,000, up 4.2%, with House of Black, Hikaru Shida and Jeff Jarrett and Jay Lethal. Dark on January 3rd did 161,000, up 15.0% with Top Flight and Christopher Daniels. Notes from the December 30th Rampage show. It was a show that was weak from a marquee standpoint on paper, but was actually quite good in the ring. It opened with Orange Cassidy pinning Trent Beretta to retain the All-Atlantic title in 11:25 in a 3 stars half match. Beretta hit a tope on Chuck Taylor when Cassidy moved, and Cassidy hit a pescado. Beretta went for a spear but Cassidy leapfrogged him and Beretta went into the barricade. There were lots of near falls and creative spots leading to the near falls. Beretta used both a spinning tombstone and a regular piledriver for near falls. Penelope Ford came out and distracted Beretta. Cassidy hit beach break but Beretta kicked out, but Cassidy then hit the orange punch for the win. Kip Sabian was on commentary. The idea was that Sabian, through using Ford, was manipulating to break up best friends as Beretta walked out on Cassidy after the match. A great promo segment from Darby Allin noted that he graduated high school and was 115 pounds and told everyone he wanted to be a pro wrestler, and his classmates didn't believe in him, his friend didn't, and even his dad didn't. He told Sting he didn't know if he or the fans of Seattle even think he can beat Samoa Joe. Sting said that if he says he doesn't, he'll be like everyone else who doubted you, but if I say yes, you'll lose the chip on your shoulder and you need that chip because Joe is a killer. He said it doesn't matter what he thinks or what Seattle thinks, it's what you think, so shut your mouth and just do it. Allin walked away. Sting was great here. Kip Sabian pinned Atiba in 117 with the orange punch with the idea he was mimicking Cassidy. Preston Vance did a promo and said his new name is Pero Peligroso. He said that the last 3 years he had to wear a stupid mask and do a stupid hand gesture. He said he's been wrestling local talent or Dark Order members, and said they were one and the same, basically saying the Dark Order guys were no better than local enhancement guys. Jon Moxley said that over the past 3 years in AEW, 2 men stood above the rest and beat everyone put in front of them, saying it was he and Adam Page. He said there had to be a showdown to find out the top guy, the true ace and the last man standing, and he knocked him into another dimension and Page woke up in the hospital while he slept like a baby. He said the BCC works harder, trains harder and delivers harder than anyone else. He said that we put in the work so we get to sleep like babies but we don't necessarily care about the safety of the athletes. He said Page is hurt, but he's been hurt for 10 years and it's a tough business and this is the major leagues. He said if Page makes it to the Forum he'll remind everyone just how dangerous this business can be. Sonya Dutt, Jeff Jarrett, Jay Lethal and Satnam Singh did an interview. Jarrett said that Max Caster will regret that rap, he'll end his reign as tag team champions and end his career. Jade Cargill retained the TBS title over Kiera Hogan in 6:36 with Jaded. The real story here was Layla Gray was holding Hogan and Cargill went to slap her, but Red Velvet blocked the slap. Velvet walked out on Cargill and Gray. One issue I have with this is with Cargill as TBS champion and being undefeated for well over a year. How does it make any sense she has never wrestled for the AEW title? I mean, a few months of building, sure, but it's way over a year. She's unbeatable, but yet she's never in with Baker, Hayter, Storm, etc. Mark Sterling plugged the Tony Nese vs. Danielson match. When they were doing the Mark Henry promo, Moxley, when talking about Swerve Strickland, said that Killshot was his favorite wrestler years ago. The story was apparently that Moxley was injured and watched Lucha Underground and saw the ridiculously great Killshot, Strickland vs. Dante Fox, or Fox, and thought it was one of the greatest things ever. Strickland told Moxley, Castagnoli and Yuta that you're missing some guys, but yours got taken away from you while I got rid of mine, Keith Lee. Yuta said he didn't need 2 rejects and told Moxley and Castagnoli not to come to the ring with him. Man, does that make Yuta look dumb, telling his guys to stay in the back when you know the other guy is bringing 2 guys out with him. Strickland beat Yuta in 12:33 of a 4 stars match. Both guys were great here. The best thing was Yuta having his leg worked on a lot, and he continued to sell the leg to the point of a one-legged nip-up and a German suplex with a bridge, but only using one leg. Lots of near falls. There was a ref bump and Strickland won with a low blow and JML driver. Notes from the January 4th show in Seattle. Another super hot crowd which AEW has had the last several weeks. The crowd was just over 8,900 with 8,400 paid. This was the debut in the market, but the key is that Danielson is considered from here and it was his first time in the market in years, plus Swerve Strickland, Darby Allin and Aubrey Edwards are from the market. So they were going to draw more with the local tides than debuting in most places. The show was written to put over all of the locals, with Edwards getting some key ref spots to get pops, Allin winning the TNT title from Samoa Joe and Danielson and Strickland winning. They also used a lot of area talent from Defy on the undercard. They had a number of reps from THQ and GameStop at the show. WW was in the same building in September and drew 9,900 and it was listed as 9,100 paid, but arena officials said the paid here was actually slightly above that one. It was the first show with the new production. The look at the show is cleaner and the lighting is better. There is a new and larger stage, but the tunnels are gone. This was the first show with Mike Mansouri's changes, although they were planning on revamping the look of the show at the start of this year before he was hired. The one negative with the lighting is this was the largest TV crowd in a while, but also far from a sellout, and the way it was shot you could frequently see the upper deck being empty. WWE can put 5,000 in a building, and the way they shoot it, it looks packed. In this same building, WWE had more people in, but not that many more. But it looked packed because of how it was shot. They only taped a few dark elevation matches before the show. Matt Taven and Mike Bennett with Maria Kanellis beat the Bollywood Boys, who were the Singh brothers in WWE and work regularly for Defy. Brian Cage beat Defy wrestler Shaft. Dynamite opened with Ricky Starks over Chris Jericho in 12:36. The work wasn't that crisp, but the crowd was unglued and the match layout was strong. Particularly the spot with the walls of Jericho on Starks, and Starks was trying to fight out. Matt Menard hit Starks with a baseball bat in the face, but Starks kicked out and won clean with a spear. The JAS all beat down Starks after until Action Andretti ran in for the save with chair shots on everyone. But Anna Jay got a chair away and Tay Conti gave Andretti a low blow. The JAS were beating down Starks and Andretti. Andretti had his face all messed up with the idea it was from the fireball and his face being rubbed on the ground. Jericho laid out Andretti with a chair and Jake Hager power-bombed Starks off the apron and through a table. Andretti's face was legit marked up from the beating backstage as well. Adam Page came out and said he wasn't cleared for next week, but he hoped with one more scan and seeing his doctor when he gets home he will be cleared. That was weird because the rest of the show they were advertising the match for next week. Why would he say he's not yet cleared on the last show, and if not, why would they advertise it? He said if it is cleared he will knock Moxley's dick into the dirt, which is a term I've never heard before on a wrestling show. Moxley came out. This was a mess. The mic didn't work. The crowd chanted, "We can't hear you." Page handed him his mic and that didn't work. Finally they gave him a new mic. Moxley was not happy at all. Finally the crowd could hear him and he said he's sick of Page playing the victim. Page said he wasn't mad at Moxley for knocking him out because he's been knocked out before, even by his friends. But he was mad that Moxley called him out, didn't let him get in a word and made a joke about him. Page said he's got 2 in the chamber and you will get them at the Forum. Max Caster came out for a great rap and the crowd was very hot for him. He said Karen Jarrett should say less because she's getting dragged worse than Skip Bayless. He called TNA total nonstop acclaimed. Jarrett actually acted like he was entertained by this. The Acclaimed beat Jarrett and Jay Lethal to keep the tag titles. This was a 3 stars half match. The crowd was very hot. Jarrett is really good as a heel against these guys and Lethal is just a great wrestler. Billy Gunn got kicked out. Satnam Singh at one point was on the floor and you could see him just standing there looking like he was in awe of how loud the crowd was. Singh threw Max Caster into the steps. All the refs came out to help get Singh to the back when Stefan Smith kicked him out. Jarrett hit the stroke on Anthony Bowens, whose foot was on the ropes, and Sonya Dutt knocked the foot off. Smith counted the pin and they announced Jarrett and Lethal as winners and tag champs at 10:50. Aubrey Edwards was out there and told Smith what happened and ordered the match restarted. Lethal tried for a pin on Bowens using the ropes but Caster shoved him into a cradle by Bowens for the pin in 16. Baker and Hayter cut a promo. They said that Saraya doesn't understand what AEW is. Baker noted that both she and Hayter were AEW originals who had rough beginnings in the company but they worked their way to the two. They said that Hikaru Shida and Toni Storm are fantastic wrestlers, the best in the world, and asked how could Saraya not have made a decision when either of them could be her partners. Baker said she's the champ. I'm the boss. She winked when she said that, which a lot of people felt was saying Sasha Banks would be there next week. Danielson beat Tony Nese in 3:26. The crowd was ridiculous for Danielson as expected. Josh Woods interfered early but Danielson used a Busaiku knee and label lock to win. Danielson then said he was feeling froggy and wanted another match, and called out MJF. MJF came out and said no, called Danielson a mark. MJF said that he gets a big fat check every week whether he wrestles or he doesn't. He said that if Dean Malenko and Lance Storm could procreate a child, the child would still have more charisma than Danielson. He said that just because Danielson looks like a goat it doesn't make him the greatest of all time. He said that people on the internet in their mother's basement say Danielson is the greatest, but the people who have been in the business like Disco Inferno, Eric Bischoff, and the smartest of all, Jim Cornette, all back him. I'm not sure how smart this is for Tony Khan to put over guys who are obsessed with his going out of business on his own television. It got heat here but it also puts them over big. Danielson wanted to fight and MJF ran away. Eventually they agreed to the deal where Danielson has to wrestle every Wednesday until February 8th or 5 straight weeks, and if he wins all 5 he can get a title match at Revolution on March 5th in San Francisco. Danielson then said when he wins all 5, it'll be a 1-hour Iron Man mock, saying he was going to expose MJF for not having the cardio and for not putting in the work, and how he doesn't have the footwork, and the reason he doesn't wrestle on TV is because he's not a good enough wrestler to come out here every single week. I'm not sure if this was national, but DirecTV where we lived was out for almost this entire segment. Swerve Strickland beat our Fox in 9:08 with a crazy Death Valley bomb off the ropes and onto the apron and a double foot stomp. It was a little rough early but after some hard kicks and acrobatics the crowd got very into it. Saraya was out with Storm and Shida. She talked about how great Storm and Shida were and then picked Storm to be her partner. Shida looked furious. The Gunn brothers came out for a mock funeral with tombstones for FTR. The Gunns said that once they lost to them, then they lost their Ring of Honor, AAA and IWGP tag titles. Didn't they lose the Ring of Honor belts before losing to the Gunns? Then Colton said that they started a podcast that nobody listens to. They talked about their old dad bodies. FTR's music played and the crowd popped, but they didn't come out. The Gunns acted scared at first, but then started laughing. Excalibur outright said FTR was in Japan and had wrestled at the Tokyo Dome. The Gunns ended it by saying Top Guns, out. Jade Cargill and Red Velvet beat Sky Blue and Kira Hogan in 6:47. This was weird. The match was about teasing problems with Cargill and Velvet. Cargill yelled at her. She tapped her on the head to tag her in. Cargill chokeslammed Hogan and was being nice and went to tag Velvet in to let her win. Velvet wouldn't take the tag and left. Cargill was then left with both but still pinned Hogan with Jaded to win. The way it was structured, Velvet was the heel and Cargill was left with 2 people and beat them still. Main event was Darby Allin over Samoa Joe to win the TNT title at 8:45. Again super hot and total action. Allin came out and hugged Nick Wayne at ringside. They noted Wayne was 17 years old, had an AEW Futures contract, was the son of the late Buddy Wayne and called him a wrestling prodigy. Joe came out and shoved Wayne and then Allin hit Joe with a tope. Allin hit Joe with his skateboard and came off the ramp with a double foot stomp on Joe with the skateboard. Allen climbed a ladder on the ramp and did a flip into Joe, and in doing so, started selling his leg being injured from the landing, and he executed the injury spot really well. Joe gave Allen a uranage off the apron onto the ring steps, and Allen took one of those bumps that reminds you how badly he's going to be hurting as he gets older. Joe worked over the Y knees. Joe nearly had him finished with a choke, but Allen fought back. He used a Canadian destroyer, a coffin drop to the back, and a second regular coffin drop for the pin. The place exploded. They had the big confetti celebration and Sting came out to celebrate with him. This show worked great live and with the crowd reactions was well received. So the rating was a huge disappointment. After the show went off the air, Allen did a promo and talked about coming to see the Supersonics as a kid here. He joked that he graduated high school at 115 pounds and now weighs 120, and said that people didn't believe in him, but if you have a dream, don't listen to anyone else. Listen to yourself and do it. He asked Nick Wayne to come into the ring. He noted that he gave Wayne a contract and how Nick's father Buddy Wayne trained him. He said Buddy would be proud of Nick and teased the idea that he would defend the title someday against Nick, but told Nick he had to graduate high school first. The word is that AEW will start using Wayne, who has a futures contract, when he turns 18, which will be the fall of 2023. After Dynamite they taped more Dark Elevation. House of Black beat Ryan Nemeth and Ari Daivari and Peter Avalon. The crowd went crazy for the House of Black, and Malachi was said to have looked great. Claudio Castagnoli beat Josh Woods. Powerhouse Hobbs beat Vinny Pacifico. Fans were chanting Defy for the local promotion during this match. Nyla Rose and Marina Shafir beat Amira and Danica Della Rouge. There were problems with Vicky Guerrero and Rose and Shafir. Guerrero ended up walking out on them. Matt Hardy and Ethan Page and Isaiah Cassidy beat Cody Chun and Sonico and Guillermo Rosas from Defy. Ethan Page was out there dancing like Jeff Hardy and doing Hardy mannerisms. Cassidy and Hardy didn't get along with Page. This could be the tease of a Jeff return. Matt was very over with the crowd. There was a chant of "We want Jeff," and then others chanted back, "No, we don't." Athena kept the Ring of Honor Women's title over Viva Van. She continued to beat down Van after the match until Shafir made the save, so it looks like Shafir is a babyface who will be going after the Ring of Honor Women's title. Van was very over to the live crowd because of her being with Defy and her social media presence. Eddie Kingston and Ortiz beat Defy's Midnight Heat of Eddie Pearl and Ricky Gibson. The crowd was very into Pearl and Gibson, more than any of the enhancement talent. Bandito pinned Christopher Daniels. The crowd loved Bandito, and this was said to be the best match of the night, not the live show. Chuck Taylor and Trent Beretta beat Luther and Serpentico. Danhausen used a low blow to set up the win, and the Best Friends left teasing problems. After the show, Orange Cassidy and Danhausen came out and hugged referee Bryce Remsburg, as they noted it was Remsburg's birthday. UFC. Tatiana Suarez, who had looked to have the potential to be one of the top women stars in the company, both as a fighter and a personality, but whose athletic career has had issues with both cancer and injuries, said this past week she was looking at returning in February and moving up to 125 pounds. Suarez has been out of action for 3.5 years due to neck and knee injuries. She is coming back now from knee surgery. In 2018, she beat Carla Esparza, the two-time strawweight champion, by a third-round stoppage and was clearly the best wrestler in the division. She said that she believes she's the best wrestler in women's MMA. Suarez had placed third in the World Championships in 121 pounds in 2008 and 2010 and was training for the 2012 Olympics when she suffered her first neck injury and then was diagnosed with cancer. She's 8-0 in MMA as an official record, not including 3 other wins on the 2016 season of The Ultimate Fighter. Damir Ismagulov, who had a 19-fight winning streak snapped in a loss on December 17 to Arman Tsarukyan, announced his retirement this past week at the age of 31. He said he was retiring due to health problems. "Unfortunately, due to circumstances and health problems, I have to end my sports career," Ismagulov wrote on Instagram. Ismagulov hadn't lost since 2015 before last month's loss. He was 24-2 and was a former M1 champion who had been unbeaten previously after signing with UFC in 2018. Veteran Francisco Trinaldo, 44, is no longer on the active roster. His contract expired with his last fight. He started in UFC in 2012 and was 18-8, losing to Randy Brown in his last bout in October. He fought at lightweight and welterweight and had wins over Jim Miller, Paul Felder, Bobby Green and Evan Dunham, among others. Jeff Neal suffered an undisclosed injury and pulled out of his January 14 match with Shavkat Rakhmonov. Bellator. Ariel Helvani noted that he's heard Bellator is up for sale. We've heard rumors Paramount has been interested in selling it sometime. Manny Pacquiao, 44, announced in the ring at the annual New Year's Eve Rizin show that he had signed for a 2023 match with Rizin. He said the date of the match would be announced soon. Pacquiao was brought in by Rizin for a deal in September and was talked with at the show where Floyd Mayweather Jr. did an exhibition boxing match with MMA fight Mikuru Asakura. The idea is that Pacquiao would be an exhibition boxing match on a major Rizin MMA show, likely against an MMA fighter who would be no challenge for him to beat. Bellator got a clean sweep over Rizin in their 5-fight series. All 5 fights went the distance. Gadza Rabadanov, 19-4-2, beat Koji Takeda, 15-4. Juan Archuleta, 27-4, beat Soo Kul Kim, 18-7-1. Kyoji Horiguchi, 31-5, beat Kromata Hyukubo, 25-7-2. Patricio Pitbull Freire, 35-5, beat Kleber Koike, 31-6-1. The main event saw AJ McKee, 20-1, beat Roberto Satoshi de Souza, 14-2. Freire's fight was non-title since the fights were all under Rizin rules, which were the old Pride rules. It says something about the quality of fighters in Bellator and Rizin when Bellator went to Japan and fought under the house rules and still swept. WWE. Money in the Bank for this year was announced for July 1st in London at the O2 Arena, meaning it would be an afternoon show in the US. It will be the first pay-per-view show in England since SummerSlam 1992 at Wembley Stadium, coming on the heels of the successful show in Cardiff. The event will no doubt be an instant sellout. The company will be moving into the new building they had been working on for some time, a 13-story tower. The full move to the new offices is scheduled for around March. The new 400,000 square foot building is located at 677 Washington Boulevard, in downtown Stamford. There are currently about 800 employees who will be involved in the move. When the move is done, WWE will no longer have people working out of either the famed Titan Towers at 1241 East Main Street or the 88 Hamilton Avenue television production building. They would be looking at renting out those locations and would be also open to selling them, but they have not put either location on the market. The television production would be in a 7-story pavilion in the office, which used to be one of the largest banking trading offices in the world. The headquarters was formerly owned by UBS until they moved across the street in 2016. Regarding Trinity Fonta returning, talks are ongoing but nothing has been signed as of midweek. Styles suffered a broken ankle on the December 29th show in Hershey, Pennsylvania when he fell out of the ring. The injury won't require surgery, but he still should be out of action for a while. Wyatt suffered a broken finger on his left hand in his December 29th match with Mahal in Miami. He will likely be working through the injury, as talent working with broken fingers is commonplace. On will be back to programming Sunday nights around WWE on February 19th. It will be a 3-hour block with biographies from 8 to 10 p.m. and WWE Rivals from 10 to 11 p.m. On. Announced the season premiere would be an episode on NWO, and others for this season would be Jake Roberts, Chyna, Dusty Rhodes, Kane, and Iron Sheik. We do know that they were to be filming an episode on Ricky Steamboat, so that could be one of the others. Freddie Prinze Jr. will host the WWE Rivals show, and the February 19th show will be Hogan vs. Andre. Others covered will be Bret Hart vs. Austin, Undertaker vs. Mankind, Triple H vs. Batista, Rock vs. Cena, Reigns vs. Lesnar, and Austin vs. Michaels. The show WWE's Most Wanted Treasures will return over the summer with Booker T, Foley, and Lita as hosts. For the Cena and Owens vs. Zayn and Reigns match, everything was said to be very carefully done. Cena hadn't been in the ring for a long time and was obviously being protected. With all the push by Fox on NFL games for the match, the feeling was Cena had to hit the attitude adjustment and look strong. Booker T will be full-time on NXT working with Vic Joseph. The original plan was for Booker T to be in the spot during football season, with Wade Barrett doing SmackDown. After football season, the idea was for Pat McAfee to return to SmackDown and Barrett to go back to NXT. A lot of the NXT talent from the UK that appeared on a few shows and then disappeared are due to them having to return home for visa issues. No word on when they would be brought back. Doudrop, who also went home, that doesn't apply to her, and she's been out of action due to being ill. We're told many of these visa issues are in the process of being cleared up, so some of the NXT UK talent that appeared for a few weeks and then disappeared should start returning when the new visas are finalized. Some also may not and be held off to be the cornerstone stars for whenever NXT Europe gets going. A correction from last week regarding the Dragon Lee story. Because Lee's contract was above usual NXT levels but not main roster level, he wouldn't be the highest paid there since Apollo Crews has a main roster deal. Dominic Gutierrez, 25, announced his engagement to Marie Juliette, his longtime girlfriend, over the weekend. The two have been a couple since he was 14. Ticket numbers: January 6th SmackDown in Memphis at 7,728. January 7th house show in Jackson, Mississippi, at 2,844. January 8th house show in Huntsville, Louisiana, at 2,848. January 9th Raw in Birmingham, Alabama, at 6,097. January 13th SmackDown in Green Bay, Wisconsin, is at 4,651. January 14th house show in Roanoke, Virginia, is at 2,701. January 15th house show in Corbin, Kentucky, is at 1,971. January 16th in Cincinnati for Raw is at 5,484. January 20th SmackDown in Detroit is at 7,253. January 21st house show in Erie, Pennsylvania, is at 2,125. January 22nd house show in Binghamton, New York, is at 3,486. January 23rd 30th anniversary Raw in Philadelphia is a near sellout of 13,059. January 27th SmackDown in Laredo, Texas, is at 3,710. January 28th Royal Rumble in San Antonio is at 34,848. January 30th Raw in Tulsa is at 4,621. February 3rd SmackDown in Greenville, South Carolina, is at 4,049. February 4th NXT Vengeance Day in Charlotte, North Carolina, is at 2,972. February 4th house show in Columbus, Georgia, is at 1,688. February 5th house show in Pensacola, Florida, is at 1,649. February 6th Raw in Orlando, Florida, is at 5,839. February 10th SmackDown in Uncasville, Connecticut, is at 3,558. February 13th Raw at the Barclays Center in Brooklyn is at 6,389. February 17th SmackDown in Montreal is at 12,376. February 18th Elimination Chamber in Montreal is at 12,654. February 20th Raw in Ottawa ONT is at 5,053. February 24th SmackDown in Evansville, Indiana, is at 3,859. February 26th house show in Rockford, Illinois, is at 1,984. February 27th Raw in Grand Rapids, Michigan, is at 4,262. March 3rd SmackDown in Washington, D.C., is at 2,962. March 4th house show in Syracuse, New York, is at 2,009. March 5th house show in Trenton, NJ, is 3,159. March 6th Raw in Boston is at 3,691. March 10th SmackDown in Pittsburgh is at 3,626. March 11th house show in Youngstown, Ohio, is at 2,293. April 1st WrestleMania in Los Angeles is at 49,584 and April 2nd is at 50,114. For Canadian ratings this past week, SmackDown on December 30th with Cena did 207,500 viewers and 86,325 to 54. Raw on January 2nd did 234,600 viewers and 115,825 to 54, which was considered an amazing number since Team Canada was playing in the World Junior Hockey Tournament head-to-head and did 2.49 million viewers. Plus they had Monday Fight Football and the situation there. NXT on January 3rd did 44,000 viewers and 18,025 to 54. AEW on January 4th did 81,000 viewers and 44,025 to 54. Regarding the New Day podcast being discontinued, the podcast was taped in arenas and hotels when the three were together on the road. Big E got moved away from the other two and Woods got busy with his G4 show. Some of the producers were let go during the cutbacks and that's the reason no more podcasts and no more shows like WWE 24 and WWE 360 and WWF Chronicles. The New Year's Evil show, a special NXT event on January 10th that has been pushed for a week, has Braun Breaker vs. Grayson Waller for the NXT title, the Creed Brothers vs. Veer and Songa, a 20-woman battle royal with the winner getting a women's title shot at Roxanne Perez, Hank Walker vs. Charlie Dempsey, and Dijak vs. Tony D'Angelo with the winner facing Wes Lee for the North American title. There will likely be angles to build to the February 4th show in Charlotte. For the January 6th SmackDown show, It's Ricochet versus Top Dollar, with the winner getting into the Rumble in the planned 4 weeks ago tag title match with Usos versus McIntyre and Sheamus. Regal will be at the show, but he will not be appearing on camera. It will be the first live event he's been to since starting back. For the January 13th show, it's Gunther versus Strowman for the IC title. Video views were way up this week due to SmackDown, with Cena, Wyatt, and Charlotte Flair. The big numbers were, 1. Cena and Owens versus Reigns and Zayn 5.7 million. 2. Uncle Howdy lays out Wyatt 2.0 million. 3. Flair beats Rousey for title 1.6 million. 4. Gunther brawls with Strowman 895,000. 5. Bloodline takes over Raw at the start of the show 836,000. Probably the biggest surprise for a non-top guy is the Dominic Mysterio promo, where he's now Razor Ramon the Hardass out of jail, did 732,000. Notes from the final SmackDown of the year and biggest of the year in many ways, with the return of Cena and Charlotte Flair. There were a few injuries. Gunther was said to be okay after a chair shot from Ricochet. Zayn got a bloody nose and Owens got a black left eye in the main event, the latter from either a punch or clothesline by Reigns. The dark match open saw Morgan and Knox beat Deville and Lee when Morgan pinned Lee after Oblivion. Everyone worked hard and the crowd was hot for it. Morgan jumped off Knox's back and gave Lee a flying codebreaker during the match. Titus O'Neil, who is from Tampa and known locally for his community service, was guest MC. The show opened with Wyatt coming out. He's hard as hell to book, but the people see him as a total superstar. It is notable that on the depth sheets Wyatt is listed as the #1 face on the brand, and obviously Reigns is the top star and listed top heel, even though everyone cheers him. So one would think that's the obvious direction, but you never even see hints of it. Wyatt said that he doesn't think of himself as a good person, but he tries. But he said when he looks back at all the horrible things he had to do to get ahead, he doesn't regret much. Last week he said he did something he did regret by attacking an innocent cameraman. He said he didn't deserve that. Knight came out and said that Wyatt was responsible for the Uncle Howdy stuff and it's time to pay the check. They set up the Rumble match. Uncle Howdy came out and stood next to Wyatt. Then Howdy gave Wyatt the Sister Abigail to take him out. Zayn showed up to knock on the Bloodline dressing room door. Heyman came out. This came across as the hint about an eventual turn on Zayn. Heyman told Zayn that the crowd chanting for Zayn all the time is not the right optic. He said that life is the island of relevancy, is staying 3 steps ahead at all time. Then Heyman invited him in. Sikoa pinned Sheamus in 11:10. Michael Cole mentioned the death of Don West here. Sheamus had the cloverleaf on when Jimmy Uso pulled Sikoa to the ropes. The Usos started brawling on the floor with Holland and Butch. Sheamus did a clothesline off the post onto both Usos on the floor, but Sikoa then won with the Samoan spike. The Usos and Sikoa were all beating down Sheamus after the match. Sikoa got a chair. McIntyre returned to make the save and laid out both Usos. McIntyre then clotheslined Sikoa over the top. It felt like the start of McIntyre versus Sikoa. McIntyre then laid out Jimmy with a Claymore kick. Rousey retained the women's title over Rodriguez in 16:45. This match was good and really overachieved as compared to some of the recent Rousey matches. But they were really piping in the fake crowd noise here. Cole called the former Tejana bomb the Chicano bomb. Rousey continued to work on Rodriguez's bad arm. At one point Rodriguez had her pinned, but Baszler put Rousey's leg under the ropes. The finish saw Rodriguez try a Samoan drop off the middle rope, but Rousey got her in an armbar, and they came off the ropes into the mat with Rousey holding the armbar for the tap. Rousey was about to cut a promo when Charlotte Flair returned. She had been a heel, but the place went completely nuts for her. They know that their audience loves to see stars return, and when they do they are babyfaces. Flair challenged her for the title and wanted it tonight. Rousey agreed even though Baszler told her not to. Crowd was really hot at this point. Flair hit a high kick, then kicked Baszler. Rousey got the armbar, but Flair cradled her using the trunks at 39. So that's 14 world title wins for Flair on the way to her breaking the all-time record at 17. The Bloodline was all together backstage. Zayn asked Reigns if it bothers him that the fans chant so loud for him. Reigns said God no. Backstage, Maximum Male models, Moss, Ricochet and New Day were all making fun of Top Dollar botching that dive. At first he seemed to laugh it off, but they really were uncool about it. And they were the faces, which made it weird. Ricochet really made fun of him, and it set up Ricochet versus Top Dollar for a slot in the Rumble. Imperium was out for a promo. Strowman came out and wanted a match with Gunther for the title. Strowman said that maybe there isn't a man who can beat you. But what about a monster? He said he wasn't asking for a title shot, he was demanding it. Vinci and Kaiser went after him, but he got the better of them. Gunther went for the chop and Strowman grabbed his hand to stop him. Gunther facially sold fear for the first time, which made it impressive. Strowman clotheslined Gunther, who backed out. Strowman then ran over Kaiser and Vinci and went to do the same to Gunther, who sidestepped him, and Strowman went through the barricade. Gunther hit Strowman with 2 chair shots and Vinci and Kaiser threw Strowman into the ring steps left shoulder first. Gunther then put Strowman in an armbar when Ricochet ran in with a chair. He was supposed to throw a chair at Gunther and likely have it miss or bounce off his body. Instead, the chair nailed Gunther in the head and knocked him silly. They kept the cameras away from Gunther and the medical personnel attending to him. They announced Gunther vs. Strowman for January 13th. Cena and Owens beat Reigns and Zayn in 10:56 of a 3 stars half match. The crowd was just ridiculously hot, not for anything in the match, but just because Cena was there. It was pretty much Owens and Zayn working well together, but knowing they weren't there to be the focus, and that was Cena. It was all about teasing Cena's hot tag. Once Owens was about to tag out and Cena was pulled off the apron and Zayn gave him a hell of a kick on the floor. Owens got a near fall on Reigns with a frog splash. Reigns missed a spear and went into the post. Cena was screaming for the tag over and over and finally got it just before the 10 minutes mark. He did a 30 seconds hot tag, and that was all he did, so they very much were protecting him. Cena gave Reigns the attitude adjustment and then Owens pinned Zayn after a stunner. One would think Cena laying out Reigns will lead to something with Cena and Reigns later. After the show ended, Zayn and the Usos laid out Cena and Owens until McIntyre, Sheamus, Holland and Butch made the save. They knocked the Uso out of the ring so Zayn was left alone and everyone did their finisher on Zayn. Cena then thanked the wrestlers for sharing the ring with him and thanked the fans for coming out to support them and said how he almost didn't have a match this year and he's had a WWE match every year since 2002, it's actually 2000 but whatever, and it happened in his own backyard. Notes from the January 2nd Raw show in Nashville. The show drew 9,218 with 8,100 paid. They started with the Bloodline taking the show hostage open, similar to the show a few weeks ago, that did the best number of late and also kept the audience. I was surprised they put the Bloodline matches in the middle and then they were gone, because it left it where Hour 3 had nothing special. However, with the Damar Hamlin tragedy and the game being cancelled, it changed the dynamic. For main event, it had crossover Brooke and Benjamin beat Jagger Reed. Raw opened with the Usos and Sikoa and Zayn attacking security as the show started. It was once again the total NWO stuff that worked great for the Raw ratings a few weeks back. Owens came out. Zayn said that this was a hostile takeover of Raw by the Bloodline and that people will get hurt and blamed it on Owens. The idea is Reigns sent them to take out Owens. Owens went to the ring but Pierce came out and said he's had enough. He told security to escort them out of the building. How many years has Pierce been around wrestling to think that would work? Sikoa took all the security guys out himself, making Pierce look like a total moron. Owens then ran in after them but there were too many of them. Then a ton of faces. Benjamin Alexander, Gallows, Ali, Elias and the Street Profits ran in and cleaned house. The Bloodline was in the crowd and now Pierce said that since they were here he was putting them to work. He announced that all of them would have matches tonight. Belair did a promo and said that she is not a victim. After tonight she said that she doesn't want to talk to or about Bliss again. Backstage, all the guys who ran in as well as Ziggler, all wanted the Bloodline. Elias was mad saying that Sikoa hit him with a guitar and he wanted Sikoa in a singles match. That wasn't a good idea. So Pierce announced Elias versus Sikoa in a street fight in a Music City street fight, meaning a bunch of musical instruments around the ring. The Street Profits and Owens one of them so Pierce said they would face the Usos and Zayn. He then told everyone else they aren't getting matches with the Bloodline. Belair beat Bliss via DQ to retain the women's title in 1829. Bliss came out with a smile and playing to the crowd like she was the face, but then started doing mean faces right away. Bliss got a bloody nose. The story of the match was Belair was too strong for her. A person was at ringside wearing a mask and that distracted Bliss. Then there were the Uncle Howdy clips on the screen. Bliss acted like she was possessed and attacked ref Sean Bennett for the DQ. Then she attacked Belair. Bliss threw Belair into the post twice, and then into the steps. Then Bliss gave Belair a DDT on the steps. Belair was bleeding from the mouth. She said she got stitches and her face was swollen from one of the whips into the steps. Bliss did another DDT on the ring steps. Belair did a stretcher job. Ford went to check on Belair since they were married, which played into his match later. Kathy Kelly was with Theory. Theory said that Rollins was the past and he's the now. He said he holds all the cards and he's outplaying Rollins at every turn. He talked about his title reign as the forever reign. Elias was in the ring playing the guitar. Sikoa came out and then they had their street fight, which Sikoa won in 14-24. They used weapons like throwing people into a drum set, into cymbals and into a guitar box. Elias also used a tambourine and electric keyboard. The crowd wasn't reacting to any of this. This was another example of a big crowd, and for most of the matches the place was quiet. The country music star Hardy, who was there because he was signed to play at the Rumble, musicians playing at wrestling shows and MMA shows and boxing matches, sounds good on paper but historically it usually doesn't work, handed Elias a guitar. But Sikoa superkicked him. Hardy then got in the ring and broke the guitar over Sikoa's back. He no-sold it. Hardy ran away and Elias hit a jumping knee. Elias grabbed this broken guitar, what looked like it was made out of cardboard, and came off the top rope with it, which just looked silly since it was broken and clearly couldn't hurt anyone. Elias jumped off into a Samoan spike. Sikoa then used the spinning solo on Elias off the apron and onto the top of a piano and pinned Elias on the floor. Usos and Zayn beat Street Profits and Owens in 11:40. I was really surprised this match was there because if the Bloodline are the guys that are good at keeping the audience in hour 3, which they were a few weeks ago, having their matches finished early in the show made little sense. The story was that Ford couldn't concentrate because he was worried about his wife being injured. He looked like his mind was elsewhere. But he finally made a hot tag and ran wild. He did a great flip dive onto Zayn and Jay. Sikoa interfered and hit Dawkins with the Samoan spike. Owens was laid out by the Usos and Zayn pinned Ford with a hell of a kick. The idea is that Zayn needed a win because he lost the tag match and cost Reigns a win, so he was getting this win here. Usos and Sikoa and Zayn all beat on Owens after the match. Sikoa gave Zayn a chair. Sheamus and McIntyre then made the save. McIntyre threw Sikoa into the barricade and cleaned house on the Usos. Loomis pinned Gable in 4:09. Otis came after Loomis with a clothesline. Loomis moved and Otis lariated the post. Gable went for a la magistral cradle but Loomis blocked it and countered with a cradle. The crowd was dead here. There was a series on Cody Rhodes' return to WWE and his injury. I had figured they'd make him a surprise for the Rumble, but instead they are doing a multi-part series to build for his return. Damage Control came out. Bayley called Nashville, Trashville. She mentioned this was the city Damage Control was born in SummerSlam. Bayley brought up beating Lynch, saying that she did it by herself. Lynch came out and said that Bayley spent years in others people's shadows and now is back in others' shadows because Kai and Sky have belts and she doesn't. Lynch said that she used to think Kai and Sky were the lackeys, but Bayley is the lackey. Lynch said that they do all the hard work and Bayley takes all the glory. Lynch said it's only a matter of time before one of them turns on the other. Lynch challenged Bayley to a match tonight. Bayley said no and challenged Lynch to a tag match against Kai and Sky. Lynch said that she didn't have her cell phone with her to call a partner so she'd face them both. It started as a handicap match. Lynch was getting beaten down. The crowd was quiet for this one. Yim ran in and she's no longer Mia Yim, she's only Mission. She jumped to the apron and tagged in. I know that doesn't make sense but that stuff has been done in wrestling forever. Mission hit a tope on Sky, and her legs grazed the ropes flying out. Some stuff didn't look good here. Lynch did a missile dropkick on Kai. Mission did a head scissors DDT on Kai but Bayley put Kai's leg on the ropes to break the count. Lynch attacked Bayley. Mission did eat defeat on Kai, but Sky was the legal person and hit the moonsault on Mission for the pin in 13:44. Kathy Kelly interviewed Rollins. He did a goofy interview. He was just saying how everyone was going to sing his song. Bliss did an interview and said that she had gotten control over Belair's headspace and that she would be winning the title. Dominic Mysterio did a taped interview. He had a toothpick like Scott Hall and basically was trying to do Razor Ramon. Since he was in prison he aced like he's a tough guy out of prison, and he was coming back from serving time as a tougher man. They did a Bronson Reed video. Main event saw Theory beat Rollins to keep the US title in 23:35 of a 4 stars match. Rollins was great here. He did the Kobashi chops. Theory did a nice dropkick. Rollins hit a tope, they went to near falls. Rollins was tremendous in regard to selling his knee. He tried to pick Theory up and his knee collapsed, which looked and felt so much more real than your usual pro wrestling selling of the knee. Theory went to do the walkout countout, still one of the most illogical aspects of wrestling, and Tiles not changing via countout, which only works because fans are taught this is how it's done and accept it. And Rollins limped after him almost with the idea his knee was out, but he was doing his scripted spot. Rollins did a super kick but couldn't base and a splash off the top rope, correcting the landing to protect the knee. Then they did the same finish they always do with the ref bump, the Theory low blow, a chop block and A-Town down. The December 29th show in Hershey, Pennsylvania, did 6,279 fans. The show that night in Miami did 4,950. December 30th in Toronto did 7,724, which was a few hundred shy of a sellout at the Coca-Cola Arena. The last of the holiday shows was December 30th in Toronto. Styles and Theory both missed the show and the show was rearranged. The original main event was Theory vs. Rollins, as it was all week. Theory was announced as being off the show by the building the day of the show, and it was announced as Rollins vs. Lashley. It ended up as Rollins vs. Balor in a cage match, and Lashley wasn't on the show. Belair went to a no contest with Lynch when Bayley attacked both of them in the Raw Women's title match. Street Profits beat Alpha Academy when Ford pinned Gable after a frog splash. Omos pinned Ali with a choke slam off the top rope. Ali was on the top rope when MVP distracted him, and Omos then grabbed Ali and brought him into the ring with a choke slam. Anderson and Yim beat Priest and Ripley when Anderson pinned Priest with a cradle. Miz pinned Loomis with his feet on the ropes and Corbin holding Miz's legs for extra leverage. The two were beating down Loomis until Gargano made the save. Gargano and Loomis beat Corbin and Miz when Gargano beat Miz. Rollins pinned Balor in the cage match main event. Originally it was advertised as Rollins vs. Theory, but Theory was pulled from the show the day of the show, and they announced Lashley as the replacement. Then Lashley wasn't even on the car, and Balor, whose spot underneath was opened up when Styles was injured, came out here. Priest got into the cage and attacked Rollins as Rollins was about to give Balor a pedigree. Rollins gave both Priest and Balor low blows and then went to leave the cage, but Ripley slammed the cage door in his face and she started beating on him. Lynch then came out with a kendo stick to attack Ripley and gave her the Uranage. Rollins then gave Priest a curb stomp and Balor a curb stomp for the pin. Rollins and Lynch kissed to end the show. And Wrestling Observer Newsletter, January 9, 2023. Wrestling Observer Newsletter.